for spiritual seekers, or people who are interested in ancient Kemetic philosophy, ancient Kemetic civilization, for anyone anywhere in the world. So we're going to unveil some of the deep mysticism. So now we're going to get back to our, and this is the link that you use to sign up. So seize the day, as they say. Okay, so now we're going to go over to our presentation. And this actually will be the last of these until after the Ramses III presentation. So I won't be doing any more presentations until after that. So this will be the last one until uh, late September or early October. But you all should still perform the weekly devotionals. And so if you want to continue, I'll log on and start the program, the Zoom and everything. So we're discussing the mysteries of what are referred to as pyramids. And these are two of three, which there are more than three here, but the three main ones on what is referred to as the Giza Plateau. In ancient times, this whole area was referred to as Rastal, not to be confused with the modern Rastafarian movement or anything like that. Rastal is actually a designation of mind. It's a region of mind. For example, you have your unconscious, you have your subconscious, and you have your conscious mind that are usually explored in psychology in the West. Usually the subconscious is explored in the modern psychology with some references to the unconscious. And it was Carl Jung, actually, who in the West has started to do more exploration of the unconscious, whereas others, and still today, focus on the subconscious. Well, in ancient times, the entire architecture of the mind was mapped out by the sages, not just those three relative planes. And one of the regions they discovered, which is of great importance to the psycho-spiritual development of a human being, they labeled it as Rastal, not Re, R-E, but Ra, R-A, Rastal. Now, when they developed this area for the spiritual evolution of the soul, they labeled this region Rastal. So if this region is Rastal, it means that the pyramids are being generated The pyramids are metaphorical structures of the universe. As we spoke about the last time, the four sides represent the four equilateral planes of the universe. So they are the universe in metaphor. And or it could be by analogy. And they also labeled the four sides as divinities. So what the sages are saying to us is that the universe is a manifestation of the divine. And that at the very top, again, is a teaching point. Uh, you could take the pun as intended or not intended. At the very top of the pyramid is a capstone that's referred to as the Ben. And the Ben is the is expressing the point at which spirit and the potentiality for manifestation come together. And when that spirit and that potentiality for manifestation comes together, then through the act of the Benu, bird, by uttering sound, the union of spirit and unformed matter, the unformed matter aspect starts to oscillate, starts to vibrate in various frequencies throughout the continuum of matter, from very subtle to gross, meaning solidity, coagulation. For example, the earth is more solid than the sky. So when that vibration starts, then the earth starts to form. And that's what the four sides of the pyramid represents. The formation of the solidity of what is being generated, or what is arising out of the process of the Bennu act on the Ben point. And on the Bennu, on the Ben stone, there are certain inscriptions. There are 3 lines of text. And so we won't touch these texts until we get back. At the very top, this is a sun disk with 2 serpents coming out on both sides. And the sun disk has wings. There's a sun disk with wings. These 2 serpents represent the 2 goddesses. There are 2 goddesses, primarily Aset and Nebehet. And this symbol is referred to as Beret, Heru Beret. In the myth, in the Assyrian resurrection myth, when Heru was engaged in a conflict with his uncle, goes by Set. And these divinities, they're referred to as human divinities, meaning Asar, Aset, Set, Nebehet, Heru, Ur. These are referred to as human divinities because they make up the human psyche. In other words, there's you have an Aset aspect within you. You have a Heru, you have a Set, you have an Asar. All of these are within you. The problem is that in the type of society that human beings have found themselves in, yeah, human beings are not brought up to ascertain these various components of their personality. So mythology becomes like dry myth or just a story about some divinities outside of yourself. But actually, the myth is referring to what is occurring within you. So Heru and Set engaged in a battle because Set was vying to usurp the throne of Heru's father, whose name is Asar. It's a long, protracted battle. But in any way, through the vigilance of Set, that Set was unable to overtake the throne. So Set concocted a story. He beat up Asar, cut him into pieces. Set had to go out, find the pieces of Asar, put them together. And then when she put the body of Asar back together, they had a son. And the son name is Heru. And then Heru went down into the netherworld to meet his father Asar, who at this time had become Sokar, Asar Sokar. And they brought up Heru, they give him instructions, tell him, okay, go, you have to go vindicate your father. So he goes and engages in this struggle with Set. He engages in the struggle, he wins the battle over Set and his enemies. So he destroys Set and his enemies. And it was such a grand and marvelous victory that he flew up to the sky and he formed himself into this winged sun disk. And Jehuti saw it. Jehuti, another divinity, which is another aspect of your psyche, saw it, and Jehuti said, oh, that's great. We'll call him Beret, and we'll put him at the head of all the entrance to all the temples. So Heru Beret represents the quintessence of spiritual victory and spiritual power as the effulgent light essence of the divine in its all-encompassing nature. And so this symbol on the benben represents that all-encompassing divine light essence that is at once transcendental. And what it means is that from this spirit essence manifests duality as relating to the two goddesses. So from a singularity emerges duality. And the spiritual program of the soul is to discover that essence that is unbounded, unfabricated, and non-dual. And below that, you have the two eyes of Ra, the left and right eyes of Ra. So they represent the sun and the moon. They represent the penetrative insight into the true nature of mundane reality. So they represent the sight that sees through the illusion of duality into the true nature of the non-dual self. The power to see through the delusion of mind and ascertain the ultimate reality from which all phenomenality has emerged from. And then below that, you have three symbols. And these symbols are one of these symbols is referred to as Nefer. If you have three together, it's referred to as Neferu. And in this context, it means the beauty, goodness, and the beatitudes of the essence of spirit. Which relates to the benevolence of spirit manifest in the manifestations of the divinities and the grace that those divinities, the divinities put you into contact with the creator spirit essence of which they have become manifest from. And the sun disk in the center, essentially here you have two lines of text. And you have the sun disk in the center that separates them. And the sun disk represents the creator spirit consciousness around, from which the dual nature of the person, the Purada, manifests from or generated from. So over here he's called Sara, over here he's called Nesubiti, and we'll talk more about this. Yeah, actually we're going to do a deep dive into this philosophical idea of Sara and Nesubiti in our Ramses III presentation. So you should sign up for that because it's going to be an expansive exploration into what these terms actually mean and how they relate to you as a human being and what's going on here. That's what we're going to discuss. So we'll have that, and then when we come back from the Ramses III, then we'll go through the text here because it takes a little long, and then I'll come back to do these short lectures late September, early October. Okay. Dua, everyone. Are there any questions? I know it's early, but if there are any questions. Okay. So Dua again for a wonderful devotion until we meet.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in the Kemetic text, we see Neter, Nefer, Seneferu, Sanab. What is a phrase like that meaning?
It depends on the context. And Neter Nefer essentially means a good divinity. And, and that's one of the concepts we're going to talk about in September, right? It's a long, elaborate philosophy, but it relates to the good divinity. And so we're going to talk about that in September. And that it's outside the context of what we're talking about here with the Ben, but it's related tangentially. So we're going to talk about that more in the Ramses the Third. Okay.
One more question. How do we meditate on Heru Behudet since it's transcendental? What do you recommend?
Well, in a case like that, what you have is essentially Heru Berudet, his symbol is above all of the entrances to all of the temples. So when you're passing through the entrance into the temple, it means when you're going into the temple, it means that you're going into the space upon which uh, you practice to achieve spiritual mastery. And spiritual mastery does not come about by wishing for it or thinking, I want to be this, or just reading about it. You have to go through a series of disciplines that are referred to as Shetty disciplines. And it has to be consistent, and it has to be over time, and it has to be building up and becoming more and more like a bonfire, growing and growing and growing over time to achieve what is referred to, what we call as spiritual mastery, which is essentially Makeru. The Kemetic term will be Makeru. So what you can do is you can set up an altar, uh, and there are other forms of Herubere. This is the quintessential form of Herubere, but there are other forms of him, more in a classical form of what Heru looks like with a hawk head, things like that. So you can set up an altar with a statue of Herubere, or you can use this more abstract kind of symbol. And when you're meditating on this kind of symbol, it incorporates uh, serpent power mysticism, and metaphysics. So it all ties in. But essentially, to start, what you want to do is have the image of the deity, whether this one or the other one, and you go through the process. You uh, light the candle, the incense, or your libation, offer the fruit, and you start by with your eyes open, looking at the or gazing upon the image of the deity. You close your eyes, you visualize for as long as you can to hold it. You open your eyes, you look, you close your eyes, you visualize for as long as you can. When you lose the image, you open your eyes, you look upon the image, you close your eyes, you visualize. You do that for 10 to 20 minutes. Before you do all of that, you can start with some light breathing exercises or a couple postures. And you can do the Nut posture, which is the sky posture of Goddess Nut. You can do the Geb posture, which is the earth posture. And then follow that with the Nut posture, which ties you into the sky where Beda is. And then you work like that over time, building up gradually and gradually over time. Okay. Okay, so do it, everyone. Until we meet. Wait, I'll be there if you all are doing the devotionals. I'll be there every week to start the Zoom, and but and we'll start going through these lectures again in October or late September. Okay, do it, everyone. Hit tap. Om Amunrapta Duara Sara Seteru Om Mati Materu Heru Materu Hit tap.